What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today I want to walk through 3 clues or indicators for fall turnover so that you guys can spot it early and make the adjustments necessary to catch fish during this very difficult time of year. Before we jump into the 3 details to spot fall turnover early, what is fall turnover? It's when the temperatures start to cool. And what happens when we start getting those cooler nights? It's going to drop the surface temp of the water. And what that does is the surface temps start to fall and get cooler and cooler and cooler to a point where the temperature on the bottom of the lake is actually warmer than the top layer on the lake. And we all know that heat rises or wants to rise. So what happens is that cooler water starts to mix with the bottom warmer water that wants to rise, and the lake starts to turn over. That's what that means. And so that bottom layer of the lake that's been stagnant for a long time below the thermocline, and I'll jump into that in a moment here as well, turns over to the top. And that's what fall turnover is. So all of that water mixes. There's equal oxygen, the water's pretty dirty, and the fish ultimately don't like it. Before fall turnover, there's actually a thermocline. And the thermocline, you can see it on your electronics, but it's an actual line that sets up of where the water temperature and oxygen levels are different. And the fish want to be in the most oxygenated possible water. And so in the summertime, they like to go deep to get that cooler water, but they'll stay above the thermocline, which is, again, where there's not a lot of oxygen. So below that thermocline, not a lot of oxygen. Above the thermocline, enough oxygen for the fish to live. And that's where they'll sit, again, in the summertime warmer months. But during fall turnover, all of that water mixes. And what it does is there's no oxygen in that bottom water, comes to the top, and it all mixes and blends together. And what that does is, like I said, it shuts down fishing normally for a period of time, and it's very difficult to catch fish when the lake is turning over. So now that you know what fall turnover is and the thermocline, let's jump into 3 clues or indicators that anybody can go out on the lake and just start to understand to see if their lake is turning over. Different parts of the lake turn over at different times. So just because the lake is turning over, if you hear someone say the lake is turning over and fishing's horrible, it does not mean that you can't find fish somewhere that are biting. Again, that just means you need to move if you see any of these 3 signs. But first of all, number 1, the first thing you can do is start to look at the trees. The trees will start to change color again in fall. It's cooling down, the leaves are gonna start to change their colors, and you can honestly just see that without even being out on the lake. So while you're driving in your car, take a look. Once the trees start to turn, that is a good indicator that the lake is probably going to start turning over itself. Now, for numbers 2 and 3, to spot an early fall turnover, you need to be on the lake. So for number 2, I'm gonna say water color. So lakes around the country are completely different in their normal water color. But generally speaking, and especially where I'm at here in the southeast, lakes are generally very clear, and the water has a green, blue, clear tint to it. It's pretty clear, sometimes up to 10, 12 plus feet of visibility. Well, when the lake is turning over, again, that bottom part of the lake, including all the debris and leaves and all that other stuff, floats and mixes with the top. And what that does is it creates an off color, stained, dirty, murkier brown, like this water that I'm showing you right here. It just looks different than the normal clear water that you're used to. And again, lakes are different all over the country. If your lake, again, is generally greener or bluer, the lake's gonna get this brown, dingy, rusty color in some areas. You'll see debris in the water floating. And again, this is signs that you can see visually by being out on the lake that the water is, again, a different color, indicating the lake is turning over. Finally, the 3rd clue that you can find, you have to be behind your seat in your boat and graphing with your electronics. And if you graph an area, just turn your down scan, your 2D sonar on, you'll be able to see if there's no thermocline. Again, what I mentioned earlier in the video, that thermocline is where that oxygenated water stops and those fish will be above it. When there's no thermocline, that means that the water has mixed. And again, this is what it looks like on your fish finder. You guys can see here, you can see from 0 to roughly 40 feet. And as you guys can see, there's no thermocline. If you're interested in seeing what the thermocline looks like, just type the thermocline into Google. You'll be able to find a ton of different pictures, and you'll see on the pictures in Google, there's an actual line that sets up that you can see on your 2D sonar, and that's the thermocline. Again, there's lots of information on what that is out there already. But again, if there's no thermocline on your 2D sonar, like as seen here, then you know that the lake has already begun turning over and all that water is mixing. So now that you have those 3 steps, that just helps you to identify that the lake is turning over. Again, when the lake is turning over, it can be very, very difficult to fish. We were just out fishing yesterday and we only got a handful of bites. This time of year, you are really fishing for a handful of key bites. It's very difficult to catch a lot of numbers. Again, where the lake is turning over. Most lakes are pretty large and not all of the lake is turning over at the same time. So my recommendation would be to keep moving, stay on the move, go check different creeks, go check the north end of the lake, the south end of the lake, just check all over the place. You might need to run and burn a lot of fuel just to find areas of the lake that are fishing better than others. And don't worry, the turnover won't last too long. Lakes normally turn over anywhere, I would say, from anywhere from a couple of weeks to over a month. But generally speaking, in certain areas, the lake will turn over pretty quickly and the fishing will get back to what I would consider pretty normal for the lake that you're on within a couple of weeks. Especially if you're in the worst part of the turnover like we are here, then it should only take, like I said, a week or two, hopefully, for the fishing to get back to pretty normal. Hopefully that helps y'all identify fall turnover early so you can make the proper adjustments that you need to go catch as many fish and as big a fish as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna go try to catch a couple fish right now and beat this turnover that's happening on my part of the lake. So I'll catch y'all in the next one. Pounder on the crankbait. Even when the fishing's tough, guys, sometimes you need to resort to a reaction strike during the turnover, but they'll still eat. It's just a little bit more difficult. That's a good one to start off though. Not a big one, but another one on the crankbait. That's a good one to end on right there. As you guys can see, if you apply these tips and understand that the fall turnover is going on, you can still catch fish. It's a little more challenging. You might have to change it up and get a reaction strike using a crankbait, but it's still manageable, and it's just one more piece of the puzzle that you can put together quicker and faster utilizing those 3 tips that I just gave you. As always, if you guys have any questions regarding this video or anything else, put them in the comments down below. I'll definitely answer them. I'm gonna try to get back and catch a couple more fish. So I will see y'all in the next video. I'm out.